Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I'm going to be showing you Starrilly's recent Pi Day collection and their Heartbreak Hues collection, which isn't that recent. I am a couple days late to Pi Day, but I figured we can still celebrate with these beautiful shades. So I will save more of my thoughts at the end after some comparisons. For now, let's get into the swatches. So starting with the Heartbreak Hues collection, the first polish we have is Crimson Twilight, and this is described as a red base with a beautiful golden shimmer. This one actually ended up surprising me with the formula. It was incredibly opaque on the first coat. I feel like maybe in certain angles you can see a little hint of nail line, but because it has that sort of shimmery, metallic, almost kind of finish, I think it can really pass for a one-coater, especially on shorter nails, but as always, that's just personal preference. So I ended up doing a second coat for my swatch and it basically was full coverage. It's a really beautiful formula, super easy to work with, and I do love the shimmer. I feel like it gives it a slightly orange kind of glow. It's just so fiery. Next up we have Heartbreaker, and this is a captivating, seductive red cream polish. So as you probably know, I'm not the biggest fan of a bold red mani, but I think this one is absolutely stunning. It had an amazing formula as well that was fully pigmented, very even coverage, just ever so slightly sheer so you can still see some nail line on the first coat. And while it does build up beautifully in two, I feel like it's still not 100% opaque, but I personally don't think doing a third is necessary for this one. But yeah, the color is absolutely beautiful, definitely one that instills confidence. Up next we have Puppy Love, and this one is described as having a pink base filled with subtle blue shimmering flecks. No surprise, I really like this one. It is just so sweet, delicate, dainty, just all the things I love, especially for this time of year, but it is just so cute, especially with the name. I think it really captures the innocence of when you first fall in love. So yeah, definitely love the color, and I guess I don't really have complaints about the formula. The first coat just wasn't super even coverage, but it wasn't difficult to work with by any means. It has a little bit more of a crelly leaning formula, so I did end up getting pretty much full coverage on the second coat. There is still a little hint of nail line, but not enough for me to do a third coat. I could see this one needing a third coat though. Depending on your application, you might have some more streaks. The next polish we have is Unwritten, and this one is described as a peachy cream color. So the formula on this one was kind of like a cream crelly, I would say. As you can see, it is a little bit sheer, a little bit uneven on the first coat, which I kind of was expecting because this is kind of one of those difficult shades to formulate. And I also did overload my brush on the first coat, so I had to like wipe some back into the bottle. I figured I was gonna get better even coverage on the second coat, but unfortunately I still had some dark spots, especially near the base of my nail or the sides. I'm usually pretty heavy-handed with my application, so sometimes I apply a little too much pressure, so I really tried to float the brush over just to get the most even coverage. So I found that this one definitely needed a third coat, especially with my slightly longer nails, just to fully even everything out and make it fully opaque, which I didn't love, but again, I kind of expected for a shade like this. But I did end up really liking the color of it. I feel like usually with peachy shades, they can really be hit or miss because sometimes they're just not flattering, but this one was cute. Up next we have Lone Wolf, and this one is described as a taupe cream. I guess taupe is the right word to describe this, but I don't know. There is something about this color, maybe with the super pigmented, creamy application, that just immediately reminded me of clay. I don't know how else to describe it, and I don't even know if it's really that color accurate, but when I think of those videos on social media of people throwing clay, making little pottery, ceramics, whatever, I just see all of that in this color. And I'm not sure if I like it for that reason, but it definitely had an amazing formula. This one was easily the most opaque on one coat, so if you have shorter nails and you are careful with your application, I think you could get away with this in one coat. And the last cream in the collection is called Tempest, and this one is described as being a dark, moody teal. I feel like it's picking up a little bit more of a true kind of navy maybe, or one of those like steely gray sort of shades, which I do think it has elements of. Like, this isn't normally the shade of teal I would think of when I'm describing teal as a color, but it is darker and moodier, which I really do love, especially because it's supposed to represent the tumultuous emotions of heartbreak. So I absolutely love that they included this color in the Heartbreak Hues collection. And it had a really great formula too. It wasn't as full coverage as Lone Wolf, which was kind of what I was expecting for a dark shade, but it was a 2-coater. So we have a few more sparkly shades in the collection. This next one is Shattered Mirage, and this one is described as a purple base with pink shimmer and gold hex glitters. At first I was kind of excited about this one in the bottle because I just love the pink and purple combination and having these little glitters, but I didn't end up loving this one on my nail. I feel like the glitters are just a little too big. Totally personal preference though. I mean, the polish still is really pretty with the shimmer and the color combination in general, and it has a really pretty holographic sparkle for sure, but yeah, I just was not a fan of the larger glitter size in this one, so it was a little bit of a letdown that I didn't end up loving this as much as I thought that I would. But the formula was really great. It was a little bit sheer even still on 2 coats, but I don't think a third is necessary. Next up we have Never After, and this one is described as a lavender purple base with bright golden shimmer. I almost want to just call this a blurple polish because I feel like it does lean a little bit blue, but I could see this also just being purple, or at least on the purple side of blurple. Either way, it is a beautiful shade. I love the shimmer in this one. The shimmer definitely is on the larger size. It's not super fine or delicate like we saw in Puppy Love, so it kind of gives it a different sort of effect, but I still really like the color combo. It's especially beautiful for spring. The formula on this one was really nice to work with. It was a little bit sheer as you saw on the first coat, but still very even coverage, but it still wasn't fully opaque on 2 coats, so you might need a third. And rounding out the Heartbreak Hues collection is Star-Crossed, and this one is described as a deep purple base filled with small glitter. The glitter in this one is definitely smaller than it was in Shattered Mirage, and I loved how dense it was. I feel like it looked like a beautiful night sky, even though it's purple and not blue. I feel like this one was just so difficult to capture the actual color of because it just was reading really dark. I think when you do the first coat, you can really see that purple color, but once you build it up in 2, which, sorry, I forgot to record the actual application, it almost leans into like an indigo kind of color, but I feel like you can still tell it's purple in real life. This one was absolutely gorgeous, easily one of my favorites. And here is the Heartbreak Hues collection lineup. So I thought this was an interesting lineup. I expected the darker reds and purples. The 2 I was most thrown off by were the peach and the taupe. They make sense in context of like the names and descriptions, but it was the colors that weren't really there for me. So moving on to the Pi Day collection, the first polish we have is Infinity Rose, and this one is described as a dusky rose gold linear holographic. I feel like you can see more of that pinky rose gold color in the bottle. Here it's looking pretty neutral, I would say. And I do want to mention there is a note on the website description that says Infinity Rose has a delicate color and may slightly fade over time, so I imagine this one might lose its pinkiness and just kind of look like one of those champagne rose golds maybe. So while that may be a bummer, I do appreciate that they are giving that disclosure on the website. I think that's really important, and for what the color is right now, it is absolutely beautiful. I love it. It has an amazing formula as well that was fully opaque in just 2 coats and a super strong hollow flare. Next we have 3.14K Gold, and this one is described as a brilliant coppery gold microflake foil nail polish. I also really love this one. I just love this type of foily metallic sort of finish. It is just so eye-catching, so beautiful. Not one that I would wear as a full mani, but I just especially love these polishes for accent colors in nail art especially. This one had such a fantastic formula that was very even coverage and very pigmented on the first coat alone, but I wouldn't call it a one coater, and I feel like there was still a little hint of nail line on 2 coats, but personally, because of how reflective and shiny the finish is, I don't think you need a third. And rounding out the trio, we have Blueberry Pie, and this one is described as a peach pink base with a strong blue iridescent shimmer and blue/purple flakies. The flakies, by the way, are opaque and metallic, I guess. Maybe they're matte, but they definitely aren't iridescent like the shimmer is. So they look like these darker specks on your nail, and at first I thought that they were just these black flakes, so I kind of do like that they are blue and purple, so they actually mimic the whole blueberry pie kind of colorway, which I do think is really cute, and I love this aspect of the theme. But yeah, when I first saw this polish, I kind of had a visceral reaction to it, but I will say I did end up liking it a little bit more once I actually tried it. So I think I would call this a Prugly shade, but you'll have to let me know what you think. And lastly, I have the Pie nail art stickers, which are sold as part of the gift set or individually, but either way, they are limited edition. They come in this cute little calculator kind of sleeve and have these little pie symbols, pie charts, math symbols, and actual pies for these stickers. And here is the Pie Day collection trio lined up together. Definitely very much like that pie crust sort of colorway going on. You can see with Infinity Rose that the pink doesn't stand out too much, but it is there. So finally, jumping into comparisons, we're starting with the Heartbreak Hues Crimson Twilight shade and looking at it next to Mooncat's Pandemonium from their Underworld collection last summer. That one is another bright, shimmery red type of polish, but as you can see, it's more of a brighter red color. So I thought for a slightly darker red, but still with the gold shimmer, I can show it next to Mooncat's Con Artist, which has sadly been retired. They definitely look pretty similar in the bottle, but they aren't dupes, I would say. Mooncat's is more of a true shimmer with a slightly larger shimmer particle and is more sheer overall, while Crimson Twilight and Pandemonium have a finer shimmer and an almost more metallic kind of finish, but maybe because they're more opaque. Next for Heartbreaker, I had to show this next to OPI's Big Apple Red. Mine is the Infinite Shine version, so I'm not sure if there's really a color difference between the regular polish, but either way, you can probably see that Big Apple Red is a little bit more on like the pink leaning side, while Heartbreaker is ever so slightly more orange. So I also wanted to show this next to Holo Taco's Hot Take from the Fire and Ice bundle last year. That one is much more of a true orange leaning red though, so while it might look like it's just a little bit lighter than Starrily, at least side by side in the bottle, once you see them on the nail, you can tell a very clear difference where Hot Take just kind of looks orange compared to the other two that are definitely red. And I will say that Heartbreaker is a little bit darker than OPI, so no dupes. Then for Puppy Love, I wanted to show this next to OPI's Merry and Bright from their winter collection 2 years ago, I want to say. I feel like that one had a pretty similar pinkish base color, but the shimmer color is definitely very different. So I wanted to also show this next to Cracked Polish's Donut Spunk, but that one is more of a whiter kind of base color, and the shimmer is more on the white silvery side as opposed to the blue in Puppy Love. So yeah, these ended up not being dupes at all. Even with OPI's base color, it's kind of like on the white pink side, so it's kind of like an in-between of Donut Spunk's base and Puppy Love's, because Puppy Love is just a lot more pink. So I thought maybe it would be a little bit more similar to Cracked Polish's Feed Me Treats, which is another light pink with blue shimmer, but as you can see, these are totally different. Puppy Love is again more on the slightly muted or maybe even like mauve-y side, so definitely not dupes. Then for Unwritten, I had to show this next to Holo Taco's Rest in Peach, which is from the Pastel Don't Tell bundle last year. These two are definitely more similar than they look on camera. I feel like on camera, Unwritten looks almost like yellow, but it is more of like a true peach color, and then Rest in Peach is a little bit more on that corally, warmer peach side. So apologies that these are not showing up color accurate, but they're definitely not dupes. Next for Lone Wolf, I wanted to quickly show this next to Olivab's Storm, which I thought would have been closer because I remember that being described as a warm gray, but as you can see, it's very cool and more of a true gray. So the closest shade that I had in my collection to Lone Wolf was Pacifica's Cloudy Day. These two are definitely looking a lot more similar here in this clip, but once you see them side by side on my nail, you can tell that they are definitely not dupes. Lone Wolf, again, is giving me clay, while Cloudy Day is giving me putty, so no dupes. Up next for Tempest, I wanted to show this next to Olivab's Josler, which is described as a dark teal peacock blue kind of shade, but as you can see, it's a lot more vibrant and not as muted as Tempest is, so I thought maybe it would be a little bit more similar to Olivab's Cerulean. That one is a much more muted slate blue kind of shade. It almost looks gray here. This clip is not really that color accurate, but once you see them all side by side on my nail, they are color accurate, but you can still see the differences in them. I think I would say Tempest is kind of like an in-between shade, but maybe a little bit closer to Cerulean, just several shades darker. Next for Shattered Mirage, I wanted to show this next to the cat's Meow, which is also from Starrily. They kind of had similar vibes as far as being shimmers with this added holographic sparkle, but they were totally different color-wise, where the cat's Meow is more of like a darker periwinkle sort of color, and it has a much finer sort of holographic fleck as opposed to the micro glitters that are in Shattered Mirage. So yeah, these are definitely not dupes. I also wanted to show the cat's Meow next to Never After because they were a little bit more similar, at least in terms of their base color. At least they look like it in the bottle here. They do have different shimmer colors though, where it's a lot warmer in the cat's Meow. And I also wanted to show Never After next to Cirque's Crying Contest from the MXM Tune collection. That one is another periwinkle sort of base color with a more similar sort of yellowy gold sort of shimmer head on. So those two are definitely more similar, especially comparing to the cat's Meow, but Crying Contest is a little bit more on the sheer side. I'm wearing 2 coats of each and there's a lot more nail line there, and it also has a finer shimmer particle. And the last comparison for Heartbreak Hues is Star-Crossed. I wanted to quickly show this next to Holo Taco's Midnight Owl, which was the indigo jelly glitter from the After Party collection. I feel like color-wise, Star-Crossed is most similar to this shade, but it's a bit more on the purple side. But finish-wise, I feel like it's a little bit more comparable to something like Plus Life Lacquer's Train Graveyard from their Final Fantasy VII Remake collection. As you can see though, these are definitely not dupes in terms of their color because Train Graveyard is more of that midnight blue sort of shade, while Star-Crossed is that purpley, eggplanty kind of color. But again, they both have a similar sort of finish when it comes to this like micro flake hollow sparkle, but no dupes. And then for the Pi Day trio, I just have comparisons for 2 of the polishes. The first one is obviously for Infinity Rose and comparing it next to Holo Taco's 50 Shades of Greige. I really thought these were going to be dead on dupes, and they definitely are very, very similar. I'm wearing them both here in 1 coat because I feel like this is where you'd see the most similarity, but even still, you can slightly see that more dusky rose sort of color in the Starrily shade. I thought the color would be a little bit more noticeably different on 2 coats, but it's kind of just in more like extreme angles. Head on, they sort of do have that same greige kind of color to them, but considering the warning from Starry's, I'm assuming the pale pink color might sort of fade into something like 50 Shades of Greige. And lastly, for 3.14K gold, I had to show this next to Starry's AU, which is one of their absolute best sellers. It's basically the same exact finish, but in a more true yellow gold color, so not dupes. For more similar coppery kind of colors, I wanted to show this next to Zoya's Soleil from one of their fall collections a couple of years ago. It's kind of similar color-wise, but as you can tell, they have a different finish where Zoya's is just more of a finer sort of shimmer. And then I remember Holo Taco's Bottle Service from their After Party collection. That one was also described as a warm, coppery golden shade, and it has that metallic, shimmery sort of finish as well, but there are some hollow flakies in Holo Taco, so the finish isn't exactly the same, but definitely pretty similar, especially once you see them on the nail. Here I'm wearing 2 coats of each, and again, Holo Taco is, I would say, a little bit more on the true gold side, but still very warm, just not as orangey as Starrily is. So I personally don't think you would need both, but I don't know which one I like more. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons for Starry's Pi Day collection and their Heartbreak Hues collection. As always, I would love to know what your thoughts are on these releases. Again, I know I am pretty late to the Heartbreak Hues collection especially, but I still liked that collection. It's hard not to like Starrily polishes because the formulas are just amazing. And generally, I do like the colors. I feel like just as a whole collection, it wasn't my favorite maybe. To me, it just didn't feel super cohesive, but again, it's hard to not like them. And then for the Pi Day collection, initially I was like a little let down. I kind of wish that they kept the theme that they did with blueberry pie, especially since they have like the pie on the packaging. I feel like it just would have been cute to kind of lean into that a little bit more. But I guess Pi Day is really about the number, so it does make sense. But yeah, again, it's hard not to like these because they are just amazing colors, amazing formulas. So make sure to let me know what you think down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!